My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
Grand finale special.
Indeed it is. It was, I'm going to say it straight up, it was a brilliant grand final.
Woe to go. It was brilliant.
We talked a lot last week.
Go to woe.
Either or. Woe to go,
win.
Go to win, win to go, hey to go, indigo. Look,
Out your plates.
Look, we talked a lot last week about the high quality of the semi.
Mm-hmm.
The grand final was legitimately above and beyond what you would expect. I would argue that the signature itself is probably one of the best done signatures I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I thought they were all almost flawless.
Yeah.
That technical, which we're going to get to, was insane and brilliant all at once.
Loved it.
And I thought the showstopper gave everyone a chance to do something that was them.
Yep.
And if you look at all three, they did them.
Yep.
So it's obviously it's been an amazingly high quality series.
Yeah.
But
this is a perfect end to a perfectly good and wonderful series.
Yep. I mean, look, you get your normal sort of bits of faff and your normal bits of, look, let's watch all the people at home. And we know that those bits of recording are long. My favourite story of that, and we've told it before, so I can tell it here, is the Australian Series 3. Olivia talking about the door that she was painting. And I think she had to paint that door. It was about an hour's worth of repainting the same piece of door. While they went, we'll do that take again. That door was very well painted.
Look, I think what they should do is work out what home projects they will be doing. And if we could just we needed our doors repainted. We
Come
could
over.
just, just...
Why don't we next year propose to both Australian and Canadian that the grand final, little bits of them at home,
They just come here.
a working beat.
Yeah, and they're all doing renovation jobs. Perfect.
Yeah, we've got stuff that needs renovating, and we're happy if you want to help. So bring your families.
Bring Mike Holmes.
The more, just bring Mike Holmes. Can we do a celebrity version of Canadian Bake Off and just have Mike Holmes, and then it's an excuse to...
No, because he'll walk into the pavilion and go, this is poorly ventilated.
But then
who can work in this heat?
But then it's an excuse... First of all, the ventilation will get fixed, and as we saw, the sweating was huge. But secondly, it's an excuse to get Mike Holmes then on the podcast and possibly convince him to come to Australia and fix our house.
Well, he comes to Australia occasionally, but specifically to fix our house.
Yeah, Holmes on Washing Up. So, look, if there's a series that Mike Holmes can put his name in front of, it's there.
House.
So they walk down the hill, obviously, at the start of this grand final, and they do there were bakers, and they were fun, and then the bakes were there, and there was laughter, and I know, it's the normal stuff.
I think what they should have done for that, though, is just changed it up a bit. Have a little bit of, bass coming in, like a kick drum. Bit of, heavy guitar.
Yep.
Then there were bakes!
No, you know what I want to see?
What?
I want to see them play up this idea of the high level of competition, and I want all of the bakers that have gone home to be sort of laying in wait with paintball guns, and they've got to run the gauntlet. You got to get in.
Instead of paintball guns, different implements from the kitchen that have different flingable creams and
firing cream.
stuff. Yeah. Creme pat just flung across the lawn.
I mean,
it's biodegradable.
Look, if there's any of those launching,
I'm sure it's the natural food of cardinals.
If there's any launching devices inside Zoya's house, I'm pretty sure she's got them at this point. So
the family trebuchet.
Zoya rolls the family trebuchet out at the start of the episode. So, look, everyone's outfits were amazing, but I do need to focus on April O'Neil, Channel 6 News.
Yeah. There were turtles and a giant rat behind
Now,
her.
I believe, and I don't quote me on this, but I saw on her social media that Lauren said that Alan commented on that, and Lauren didn't know who April O'Neil was.
Oh, isn't it fun?
Which makes me feel old.
So, I had one of my burly girls, her and I get on like a house on fire. She's like my sister from another mister. I mean, they all bloody are, but she goes, I'm so inspired. I want to do... I want to do an act together, and I'm like, and she wanted to be masculine and male presenting in it, and I'm like, oh my god, we can do an ode to Scott and Charlene, and she's like, who
is Scott and Charlene?
And I'm like, from Neighbours. She's like, what?
Oh no!
And so I had to
explain,
and she's like, I'll do my research. I'll see if it works.
Oh wow! Just say Kylie Minogue. all you had to say. But
You get to wear a mullet.
But Lauren was very open on L Channel 6 News. I was here for it. Also, personal question here. Those dungarees, I require those.
Speaking of Scott and Charlene.
Yeah, I require those. And just the brightness on Zoya's dress was so... Like, they were just perfect.
Yeah.
And, Alan, very resplendent. Anne, who was back from her... Obviously, she'd spent last week... recovering from the schlag, but she was back, and you know what she brought back too? She brought her battle armor.
She did. It was
the shoulders.
I did like how she was like wasn't taking any chances, because we all know, you got to double tap and still be prepared, because you never know if the schlag's going to come back.
You never know when the schlag's coming.
And you just saw those. You knew under the shoulders, it was just all fucking metal.
Oh yeah, she was ready. She wanted to look glam and fab, and at the same time be ready to shoulder check a schlag.
Yeah, she was more metal than turning it up to 11.
She was more metal than what Lauren listens to. Anyway, the challenge was a parry breast, but unlike British, where they just go make a parry breast and it would be make a parry breast, they went, we don't want you to make a normal parry breast. We want you to do something with it to make it yours.
Yeah, like this is something that you'd usually see come up in a technical. And here, seeing it in a signature, I thought was a stroke of genius.
With a make your own thing.
Yeah.
2 hours and 15 minutes to make your own thing. And again, as with much of this episode and much of these bakers in this series, they did a brilliant job of, first of all, thinking outside the box in terms of flavour and style. Secondly, in some cases, thinking in a way that nobody I know would think when it came to designing these bakes. Yeah. But they weren't crazy.
Yeah, and I really feel that this signature highlights your ingrained bias against matcha. Because I do want to note throughout this particular series, it's been ube heavy. There has been a lot of purple yam about. And while we get that, you don't say, oh, that's overused.
Because it hasn't been traditionally. One series is fine. If you see a back-to-back series, you've got a problem.
Yeah, but ube is going to come into it. And as I keep saying...
If it comes in next year, then ube...
Chocolate.
Then ube moves into the same thing.
Strawberry, vanilla, that's all pretty standard. And that comes back all the time.
Would you like consistent matcha in your life? And I know the answer to this question before I ask it.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy matcha.
Thank you. There we go. Point taken. Do you like ube?
Yes, I do like ube.
Thank you. Anyway, do you like chocolate?
But this is what I'm talking about. Yes, I love chocolate.
Thank you. Would you like chocolate to go away from baking?
No.
Thank you.
I'm not saying this. What I'm pointing out is your ingrained bias against matcha.
You better fucking believe it. At what point have I ever said that my hatred of matcha was not pure bias?
Okay, fine.
Right.
Because you've even come around to yuzu.
I've said all the way along, I like yuzu. It's just every 3 bakes.
Yeah, but every bake you basically get flour. Is flour overused in baking? What about eggs? You coming after Big Egg too?
In British Bake Off, they'd forget all of that, come up with something that wasn't a bake at all and try to make a week out of it. So anyway, I really enjoyed the way that, first of all, what I like about this is there is the stock standard, you have to be able to make this component.
Yeah.
Shoe. So you have to be able to make shoe. And as anyone who watched the most recent series of British can tell you, not always something they can do. A couple of years ago, they couldn't make shoe pastry. In this series of British, they couldn't make shoe pastry.
Look, what is annoying me about British is there is this... In the olden days, people would head to Bake Off with this kind of like reverence of, I'm going to bone up on what I can and really put it to it. And like, how many fucking... Like, you only have to watch one fucking series of Bake Off to know shoe. Pretty standard.
There are things you need to know how to do. Shoe pastry is one of them.
Yeah.
So shoe pastry was the core ingredient in this in this bake. Yes, well, the core component in this bake. Yes, you're right. So Chi went with a coconut sticky rice, mango curd, and a lime cream, and all those flavors were like very much childhood and growing up flavors. And again, flavors that we'd see probably a bit more of than they necessarily see in Canada because of the range of access to foods from Southeast Asia that we have here. But that's a profile that we look at and go, yeah, it's pretty common and it's really nice.
Yeah.
So...
Just hungry.
You just hungry?
I want some sticky rice.
Then we cut over to Anne and Zoya who are talking.
Hi, G.
Anyway, so we cut over to Zoya and Anne who are having a conversation, and Zoya just starts introducing her own bake and asking questions, and Anne's like, do you want to take over hosting now? This is my job.
She's like, you want to swap? And
Yeah.
Anne's like, no.
And it was what I loved was it was the speed at which she goes, you want to swap? And Anne's like, no, I do not want to swap. I would really be interested to see, and just one special where they get Alan and Anne to do the challenge.
Like the Christmas special.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what if they did like a cutthroat kitchen kind of thing, and it was Alan and Anne who were the kind of like...
Anne has to wear Alan's hat, and Alan has to wear the puffy shoulders on Anne's dress.
Yes. And no, but they become like the impediment.
So your impediment for like in Cutthroat Kitchen is rather than your impediment being, you can only cook with one hand, it's Alan has to help you.
Yes, he has to crack your eggs.
Anne has to control the temperature on the oven at all times.
No, she has to temper your chocolate.
Oh dear. So Zoya was going with something that was a bit more traditional. So Hondwo was the sort of the style where she was going with a chickpea cracklin. The veggie was like the veggies. It was sort of a very sort of spicy veggie with chili through it.
Yeah.
A lemon pickle, and then a raita.
Oh, was it a cucumber raita?
Or an onion raita.
Or a
paperback raita, but I'm assuming that's a joke. I also love the fact that she introduced a line from her friend, who told her that who said that the phrase she came up with was "exo-terrified."
And
exo-terrified. What's exo-terrified? You're excited but terrified.
Yes, that was me tonight in burlesque going, oh, I'm so excited but terrified.
Now, speaking of exo-terrified, this next moment is the moment I've been dreading all day. So we cut to Lauren.
Pardon me, boys. Is that Lauren's choo-choo stew?
And you know what the funny part about it is? What? The hardest word in this four is stew.
Yeah, I know, because it's like a
choo-choo,
stew.
And the stew bit is slightly the hard bit to say. But I actually messaged Lauren and went, did you do that deliberately to screw up all the podcasts? And she's like, you're welcome. But so an eggplant stew and a labna mousse.
It's one of the things that... Sorry, tangent, because that's what we do. So those who are fans of audiobooks, I think one of the things I love these days is when an author is writing a series and they have a specific audiobook actor that they're working with and they start challenging them to stuff. And I really feel that that's what Lauren's done here. She's like, well, I know there's podcasts.
Yeah, we're going to make it work.
Motherfuckers.
But what I really enjoyed about all three of those, so again, she has gone with it's a French bake, but she's taken the colonial aspect of that French bake and gone...
She's she's reverse colonized.
She's doing what came really naturally to Vietnamese culture, which is take the French colonials and go, we're going to do it better than you do it.
Yeah. Watch this, bitches. You've got baguettes. We've got banh mi.
Zoya and Lauren both went very savoury with the way they did theirs, which was just... I would never in a million years... And you know me, I love a good savoury bake. I would never in a million years have taken it savoury.
But we've seen savoury choux before.
Well, savoury choux, yes, but just because of the Paris breast.
Yes. Well, sometimes people don't want a sweet breast; they want a salty breast.
But
they want one that's had some experience.
But what I would say is that
a breast that's seen some things, not necessarily would be seen at the Moulin Rouge. What
I would say is that I like this bake a lot because I think it also. And I was talking to a friend of the show, Nerman, from Australian Bake Off. We were talking about this. We've talked about this a few times in this series. Canadian rewards bakers for taking chances. They really do. It's one of the things I absolutely love about Canadian is that you are encouraged to think a little bit differently and do something that steps outside a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're encouraged to try something that you normally maybe wouldn't do for this. Like, for example, for a Paris breast, you're not thinking, well, let's do the veg with the chili. Let's put a stew in the middle, an eggplant stew in the middle of it.
No. Someone goes, Paris breast. What did I eat at uni?
Exactly.
What did you eat at uni? Oh, no, you lived at home, so you were fucking sorted.
No, but I went to the cafeteria all the time.
Oh, God, what were your cafeteria standards?
They were okay. It was I had a lot of honey mustard chicken with rice.
Yeah.
In foil containers.
See, I was able to enjoy the delights of UNSW, which had like fucking great laksa, like one of the best laksas and really good stuff.
Yeah,
but then
we'd never heard of laksa.
Yeah. Then I went to Sydney Uni, now the on-campus miscellaneous city uni to do nursing, and their stuff was not good. But you know what was even worse? We're in a satellite fucking campus, and it was abysmal. They did good schnitzel though, so that was like a once a week treat.
Anyway, cut back to the pavilion and cheese cream had split.
You could make your own sandwiches, but you know what's a big kick in the teeth? New cafe in that fucking building now. It's really fucking good. Just saying. Anyway, yeah. What? Back at the ranch.
So cheese cream had split.
Yeah.
So she's trying to pull that back together, and they cut over to Lauren.
I mean, Jamie Oliver was wasting his time on school kids. He should have come to my university and improved the food. Jamie's uni dinners, beyond meagering.
So we cut back over to then Lauren, who's trying to make shoe buns, and that's where we get. She was loving the rhyming. So then she cut back over to her, and she's like, "The shoe likes the heat. The shoe does not."
It's like a haiku.
Well, no. What I really loved is I've said there's been a lot of the time this series you've heard phrases that you would only ever hear on Bake Off, or wisdom that you'd only ever hear on Bake Off. To that list, we can add Zoya today, who says, and I quote her directly here, you know, there's a fine line between aromatic and burnt.
It's perfect.
Never has there been a truer word, especially when you're looking at food from the subcontinent regions and like North India, South India, obviously, Southern India, obviously, looking at Sri Lanka, all the different sort of cultural, you know, touchstones around there. Also, sort of looking at, as you move into those Middle Eastern areas, anywhere where you use those really fragrant spices.
You know, the ones that us white people went and conquered those lands and
ignored.
When we're going there for the spice. Ooh, that's a bit too...
Ooh, we got pepper.
Ooh, look at us adding this to our salt.
Look at
those
salt.
Romans brought us.
Look at the salt and the pepper. We're in today. You know, they're like, have you had like this cumin's amazing. Like, what? No.
Have you tried tamarind? What about this saffron? Well, it's a pretty flower, but...
So, but anywhere around that part of the world and anywhere where those sorts of bakes, anywhere where those sorts of spices were, it is a ridiculously fine line between, you know, cook these spices until they're aromatic and they've gone slightly too far. So she's not wrong in terms of there's a fine line between aromatic and burnt. But and I feel like especially a lot of white kitchens, they go to the burnt phase and then you get the acrid taste rather than the...
Look, I think it's something that, you know, is, you know, one of those, like if you're from that culture and living in that household and watching people cook and stuff, like we do.
Come second nature.
Yeah, you know, you absorb. It's by osmosis.
But you are also dealing with...
Much like we know how long to cook a little Frank.
But you are also...
How hot do you like your little boys? To dip in your little sauce.
I swear that's actually an Australian reference and not seedy. Just please, I beg you. So Zoya turns around and goes, "I've finally gone crazy."
Welcome to the club, Zoya.
Feels appropriate. The only issue I had with Zoya's, like, that was kind of it. Then they also did the piping, and they're like, "Oh, don't know how this is going to go." It piped fine. Lauren decided she was going to pipe a thinner layer on top. To show it off a little bit more. Yeah. I, by the way, had no problem with it. I know they talk about it in the judging, but I had no problem with that. I thought it looked really good.
My sensory face was like, no, that's going to slip everywhere. It's like when you get a hamburger and they've just made the patty too big and you know it's just going to slide off.
Yeah, but you know what my problem is with a hamburger. I believe that
tomato and lettuce.
I believe that tomato is like a chain link sort of system to pull everything off the burger.
And therefore,
you won't have. I just won't have beetroot. I did see a lot of peas, however, in Zoya's mixed vegetables, and you know I would have marked her down for that.
I would have too.
Yep.
Because peas aren't traditional.
No, they're not.
They're not the legumes you should be using.
These are not the legumes you're looking for. However, what I will say is all three of those were absolutely stunning. Mm-hmm. Absolutely stunning. So, they said great colours, great height. The shoe was very well constructed. It was complex. And at that point, Bruno said, "You're a genius." There was a little bit of gelatin taste for Kyla, though, and that was something that would come back later on for Zoya in the showstopper.
Yeah.
Lauren, they said the shoe was too skinny on top, and the fillings were a little bit overwhelming, but the shoe was very well made. Bruno absolutely loved the bass, though, and said it was bright and vibrant.
Nice work.
Zoya, visually appealing and exciting. Bruno was very happy with the crackling. And again, the idea of chickpea crackling is not something that would naturally come to mind. So the creativity that's required, and as Kyla said, it was technically brilliant work. That sort of pickle that she had punctuated it, and Bruno felt absolutely humbled that someone presented a Parry breast that was like that.
So now imagine making like a, what's it called? Those things that you get, not hors d'oeuvres. Yeah, they are hors d'oeuvres, right? Like you have some Indian subcontinent spices, maybe like from the northern region or something, and you whack a bit of chickpea crackling on top, like just for the crunch. Oh,
get all over that, restaurants.
I'm just coming out with the fun.
You really are. So
I'm just getting hungry.
You're just getting hungry?
Yeah, I've got to go to bed soon, but I'm getting hungry.
All right, let's focus. So the technical. Casada Siciliana. I looked it up.
Yeah.
And before they showed it, I showed you a photo and went, holy shit.
Yep.
And then it appeared on screen, and we both looked at the screen and went, holy shit. That's insane.
Yep. It's fucking wonderful. There was a very, what's that? Italian 60s go-go song. I just felt like that was what was coming out of it.
Which one? The one that I always play all the time? The fake song?
Oh, no.
See, I played that Prison Continental. Yeah.
I mean, that would work too.
Yeah.
And I really feel it should in this instance because there was nothing in the recipe really except make marzipan. Cut into a trapezoid.
We'll come back to the trapezoid. So, chi was great because they have 2.5 hours to make it. They cut the chi and she goes, yeah, I've had it before. I buy it because it's hard to make. So, it is candied fruit, very detailed royal icing. Sponge shape is absolutely critical and it has to be in a trapezoid. The middle mixture is ricotta and chocolate chips. So you've got the sponge around it, you've got the ricotta and chocolate chips, then you've got the royal icing, then you top it with the candied fruit.
Yep.
So they started with the idea of beat for a significant amount of time.
As long as a teenage boy in the bathroom, how long do they need to beat it for? I'm not making a reference to a now deceased 80s singer.
No. Then they cut back over to Lauren, because the hard part about the mixture was you needed to keep as much of the air sort of in it as you could. So they're stirring it around, and Lauren, when they cut over to Lauren, she's got the mixer off the thing, and she's using the mixer by hand to sort of poke through. And they're like, what are you doing there? She goes, I'm just trying to not knock the air out. So I'm using my hand to clear like the flower pockets that might still exist. And Alan's like, so how do you think that's going to go? Do you think that's going to work? And she's like, well, it's a hope and a prayer. Then we got the instruction where Alan comes over to Chi and goes, so what have they left you with today that's unusual? And the answer was, make marzipan.
Now, if you were given that instruction, what are you doing?
Panicking. Deeply panicking.
You're pulling a Seymour Skinner, aren't you?
Yes. Devilishly delicious Seymour.
What if I were to go down to a baking shop and buy some marzipan? And
that's royal icing. Yes. Even though it quite clearly says marzipan. It's a Utica expression. Now, everyone gets to the funny part is they put the bake into the oven, and then they got to just stand there and panic a bit about the baking quality while they were then straining ricotta.
Yep.
So they were dual wielding basically. They're panicking and straining ricotta at the same time. And then Zoya, they come over to see Zoya about, well, how are you going with the straining? And she goes, yep, it's great. And she goes, the cake is done. It's behind me. I'm avoiding the bit where I cut trapezoids. And this is where we learned that people don't pay attention in geometry. This is where we also learned that nobody inside the pavilion is an ice hockey fan, because the bit behind the net is a trapezoid where the goalie can touch the puck.
Yes.
So the bit behind the net where the goalie can touch a puck is literally a trapezoid.
But they're Canadians. They should know this.
That's the point.
Trapezoid
As I
should be
said,
their national shape.
As I said, nobody in there is clearly a hockey fan because no one knew the trapezoid is directly behind the net. Also, you're not Simpsons fans. Because as we well know, while there are some schemes out there that are pyramid schemes, their preferred method is the trapezoid. So, The Simpsons and ice hockey taught me what a trapezoid is. But I did love Lauren apologising to her high school math teacher that she wasn't paying attention, only for her to be the only one that did a trapezoid.
Look, well done, high school teacher.
They're like, is it a rhombus?
No, I believe Chi did a rhombus. That's a rhombus.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was there was a bunch of questions of people cutting things and going, is that a trapezoid? Is that a rhombus?
But I'm just upset it wasn't a dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron. But what was really interesting...
What's your favourite shape?
I've never really contemplated it.
Mine's barbecues.
Well done. No one in Canada will get that joke.
No, but you should... Oh, Jodie will. Because I gave her...
You sent her a box. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we sent her a box, yeah. And so will and so will Megan.
Because
she's got some too. But
we could get a sponsor. We could actually fucking do more.
Do more of that, yep.
Yeah.
So... Everyone was apologising. Like, Lauren apologised to her high school math teacher. Everyone pointed out that they didn't really know anything about the maths. Zoya referred to it all as trapezoid mania, which does sound like a disease that hit in 1927.
No, I feel like it's the follow-up to Pac-Man fever.
Trapezoid mania, everybody. So,
yes, it could be in the 1920s.
But what?
See those bright young things getting taken in by the trapezoid.
Being taken in by the trapezoid.
Parents, where are your children?
But what I really thought was fascinating about, like, the way this bake operated and the way this bake worked was that the shapes really mattered.
Yep.
And, like, at the time, it was like...
structurally integral.
Well, at the time, they were like, cut them into shapes, you just tessellate them, it'll be fine. But the trapezoid was vital because of the angle that the cake had to be on.
Yeah.
And the pressure that you had to put to weigh everything down. If you didn't have the trapezoid, you were going to end up with gaps.
It's why it's a far better, pyramid scheme than a pyramid.
Well, here's the interesting part, because the idea behind a triangle is that a triangle is supposed to be the strongest shape. Because when you push on a triangle, all of its sides push against each other, so it shouldn't collapse.
Yeah, but a trapezoid essentially is a triangle with the top chopped off.
Yeah, but it's weak because it's got four sides, so you can collapse one in.
Yeah, making it a triangle.
No, making it a pile of sticks. Oh. If you push on a trapezoid made of 4 sticks, you have a pile of sticks.
I'm going to call my mate who's a physicist and get his thoughts on this.
He'll back me on the triangle thing. Leave a comment.
Ra, don't you dare back him on that.
Leave a comment.
No, don't give in. So, I get it. Keep science pure.
So then you had to weigh it down and then you had to chill it so it all sort of set. So you had the middle of it done. And I love Zoya again, turns around and she goes, why are we candying 7,000 things?
Because you have to wait for it to set in the...
Yeah, so then, and then Zoya turns around and goes, Zoya turns around to Chi and goes, Chi, are you already done candying? And Chi's like, in theory we are. In practice I don't quite know. This may not work at all. Then they unmolded them, and you can just watch them all panicking with the unmold. Then all the royal icing, then the fruit. And then we finished with Lauren turned around and went, did I make a rhombus? It was the last thing we heard. So the judging, Zoya, was very uniform, but not quite the shape of the cutouts. There was a slight gap, and as a result, you can see that sort of crap. The sponge was also very flat, so the air had come out of it. Mm-hmm. The ricotta was very good, but the candied fruit was slightly overdone.
I don't know if I missed it. Did they make their own ricotta? Or no, I don't assume
no,
so.
They were straining it out.
Yeah, because
Chi, they said that visually the top was incredibly clean, but different shape and gaps around the outside, and also less marzipan.
There was a couple of, there was a few people in ballroom dresses around the tent going, new shapes, new shapes, new shapes. That's a reference to Strictly Ballroom, by the way.
The filling...
That's my second reference to Strictly Ballroom tonight.
You're working them in. Well done. The filling was absolutely great. They said
the other one wasn't on the podcast though.
No. Yeah. They said the cake was slightly starchy, and unfortunately the bake was a little bit raw. Lauren, they said excellent geometry skills, and no one looked more surprised than Lauren.
Like,
who was sure she'd made a rhombus. Right to the end, she thought she'd made a rhombus.
The only other person who was more shocked was her math teacher.
Yes.
Who's like,
Who's
what?
now today, I can only imagine, is going to take so much credit on social media.
Yep.
You then got, so they said it was very well sealed.
You'll pull it out they will pull it out every class. Pay attention, kids. You'll never know when you'll need this. Could be on the Great Canadian Baking Show.
The filling was excellent. And
I taught a winner.
And they said great knife skills.
Chicken dinner.
So Chi, Zoya, and then obviously Lauren wins the technical. Which brings us to the showstopper.
Yes.
So the showstopper was a garden party centerpiece. It needed to hold 3 different bakes, and it was 4.5 hours to complete your bake.
So that is, you can see what they're expecting. It's like when you're reading through an essay and it suggests how many lines you need to complete or how many marks it's worth.
Yes.
This is worth a lot.
So Lauren introduces us to her spreadsheets. Now, at this point, I kind of felt really good for Lauren because who's the last baker? Let's see if you remember. Who's the last baker who produced colour-coded spreadsheets timed to the second?
Hold on. That wasn't Andre. That was...
No, it was more recent. Most recent winner outside of the person who won this episode.
Oh my God.
Starts with V.
It wasn't Vincent, was
Yeah.
it? Did he?
Vincent times everything out to the second, remember?
That's right, but
Yeah, he had a list. He had it timed out. It was
He did.
colour-coded. Everything was laid out absolutely meticulously. Because Steve gave him absolute shit for it.
That's right, but there was someone else who did that before Vincent as well.
Yeah,
there are
it had happened before then, but again, the last person that I've seen use that level of organisation in a grand final was Vincent. And Vincent, as a result, in his grand final, at no stage panicked.
So 2 things you need to do, people, if you want to win Bake Off. Listen to your math teacher. That's why I could never win. And 2, get busy with some Excel spreadsheets.
Colour-coded Excel spreadsheets timed out. Mm-hmm. If for those who, and again, go back and listen to our podcast with Vincent. He's such a good guy. And it was such a good podcast, and he's really awesome. But one of the things he talked about was the fact that he timed his bakes almost to the second. And he's meticulous with that level of detail. And Steve and Steve used to give him absolute grief about if he was out by half a second. But he just wasn't.
Yeah.
So Lauren, we had 3 different approaches, and I'll go through what they are. But basically, Lauren made a veggie patch. Mm-hmm. She was going with Mid-Autumn Festival, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And then Zoya making a wedding tower for her friend who got married during the show and she missed it.
Yes.
So Zoya, pandan chiffon cake, Earl Grey whipped icing, mango steamed profiteroles, and Szechuan jalebis. Now, couple of things to note about Zoya. First of all, nice to see a green-coloured cake that was not matcha, but was pandan.
Yes.
Beautiful. That was fine. Secondly, Szechuan jalebi. Now, I love jalebis. I used to get them all the time when I was tutoring. Students' house that I used to go to was tutoring. They used to make all those sorts of snacks and sweets. I would have loved Szechuan jalebis. Third, they then did the little bit of Zoya and her family, and they spoke to the family and they showed a bunch of different things.
Now then we got a little. You saw her mum and her family training her on the bake. She's like, "I'm fine."
But what was really important about that was then they cut back to the pavilion, and Zoya had a photo of her family there, and everyone's like, "What a keepsake! It's so lovely that they're all there with you." Now, my question. Was the photo there as a keepsake?
A bit of inspiration. Was that it?
Or was it to give to security in case when her family came in, they tried to reclaim all the stuff she's been stealing for weeks? Because they were coming into the garden party, obviously.
That's true.
So did she have the photo so that when they all came in, she could say to security, any of these people go near that teacup? Nah, take them out.
Do you think she hid it in the still? She's just gone, hey, let's just pop this
Well, John
stuff
wasn't
down there.
using the still anymore because, John went home. So the still was still under one of the benches. Now, we then cut over to Lauren. And now Lauren did something in this episode that was... We've talked about this a few times on the show over the years. Lauren did what we like to refer to as flora-ing it. Now, Flora, in the Great British Bake Off a couple of seasons ago, we've mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, we mentioned this. Flora would go, like the challenge was a sponge cake, and she'd go, I'm just going to make a dozen macarons.
Yes, and a chocolate cake to go with that.
And we're going to do all
some
that.
croissants.
But then she'd run out of time.
Yeah.
So Lauren goes, I'm going to make 6 things, including bread.
And I just gone, wow. But you know what? When she said that, with the standard of stuff, I would have believed that of her, Chi, or Zoya.
Well, this is the big difference is, and this is where we see part of that difference, is that I trust these bakers to do it.
Yeah.
But, like, again, it had a bit of a, oh, no, we're going to bite far more off here. But she went with, so the bread was going to be the trellis for the thing. And then we had carrot scones.
Yum.
Cornbread dirt. A feta and jalapeno tart. The hot dog, the Korean pancakes.
That's right. Oh, they look good.
And
Our favourite.
Stroopwafel.
It was stroopwafel,
But it was
indeed.
shaped like eggplants. Eggplant stroopwafel.
It was be nice stroopwafel.
Plus, again, she had the feta
Stroopino.
and jalapeno tarts. Also, Lauren was making pastry for the base of those. One of the times I'll be okay with peas is when she makes the jalapeno and feta tarts shaped like pea pods. Fine with that. The only other time I'm fine with pea pods, of course, is
with
Bob Ross.
When you're going shaped like pea pods, in my head, I'm just imagining little squirrels.
Now we cut over to Chi, who was going with a Mont Blanc, but her version of a Mont Blanc, Chabamel. So you have the more traditional Vietnamese with the Mont Blanc top.
Yeah.
Then the jackfruit lychee jelly roll, and the taro moon cakes, and a Vietnamese spicy pineapple cake.
Yes.
And this is where they were talking about the idea of the Lunar Festival.
Which is my favourite. It was because I went to an inner city high school in Sydney, and probably, I don't know if Canadians know, but we have a huge population of Chinese people in Australia because, well, close by.
Large Chinese population, large Vietnamese population, all of those sorts of...
Yeah, and we've got the biggest Greek population outside of Greece.
Yes, we do.
But they're down in Melbourne.
Yes.
So, anyway, back at the ranch, we got to do Chinese cultural lessons, which included language and cooking. And my favourite, and it always sticks in my head, was like the time we learnt about the Mid-Autumn Festival, and we got to explore the legend, and then we got to eat, because we didn't cook them this time, but we got to eat the mooncakes, and oh my god, they're just so yummy. And so with cheese making them, I'm having all these floody flashbacks. My ADHD brain's going, I'm back there, Mr. Chew. Wonder if my Mr. Chew's related to Lauren's Mr. Chew.
Probably not. But in terms of...
Yeah, they're spelt differently.
Yeah, they're spelled differently and they live on different continents. But beyond that, they're possibly close. But again, so I'm hopeful, therefore, that Chi at least gets a bountiful harvest out of this, which is the whole purpose of what we're doing. I also really enjoyed a couple... So they then cut to Chi's whole at-home package. Yeah. A couple of things I loved about this. First of all, we've said for years, who makes more than one layer at home? We talked about it when we spoke to Anjali, and she's like, you don't make more than one layer. Cut to Chi, who's got a 4/5 layer cake. I think it was four layers that she's doing for the bake at home bit where they're all coming over to the house. Secondly, shout out to her partner Ryan, who was staring intently at the back of her head while she was cutting the cake. That's what you call, I don't really want to have to do some bad acting.
And then a big shout out to Chi's mum, who's just so cute.
It was like, you made the final? And also Chi's daughter, who's like, Mum should win because she's good.
Aww.
I mean, look, I was waiting for... it's better than cutting back over and they go, so, who should win the grand final? And she's like, Zoya. I got money on this.
She turns around and she's like, I'm working on my inheritance now too.
Yeah, exactly. She's given me ideas. I've been stealing things from the kitchen for 3 weeks. Mum hasn't noticed. So, yeah, that was just watching Ryan sort of stare intensely was really, really funny for me. I really got a massive kick out of that. Now, the time pressure kicks in, but as much as time pressure kicked in, because they really weren't that pressed for time. They managed to do this quite well because they're all very competent and very good at what they do. So Alan turns around to Lauren at one point and goes, so you're going to a medal show after this? And Lauren goes, I'm doing accounting courses online in my bedroom.
Oh, she knows how to party, that one.
It feels very similar I feel that the crowd in a accounting lecture and the crowd at a mosh pit, there's got to be a lot of overlap there somewhere.
Yeah, and look, I assume that she's, while she's doing the reading component, she's just got metal blasting, so she's kind of got the best of both worlds.
Always, I studied with like 7 things happening at once.
Yeah, you know me with my ADHD. Like, there are times when I need to hyperfocus. Big headphones go on, loud fucking music blaring, and it's mostly metal or something with a thump. Although, what did I listen to the other day? And I was really surprised at, like 90s techno, which I fucking hated in the 90s anyway. And then suddenly I'm just like, I'm really in the mood to hear some La Bouche.
That's not a phrase you hear.
No!
Ever!
It was kind of like, really unusual.
I really also enjoyed Chi's roll technique. So Chi obviously piped all of the intricate designs for the outside of her roll, and then spread the mixture over the top so it all stuck in there, and then did the roll, and then they came out amazingly well. Yep. Just that dark batter with the bright pops of like the starlight and the moon and that through the colour.
I thought that was a beautiful like interpretation. Like it was like space Halloween. Space giving.
Space giving?
Yeah, less colonising, more fun.
Actually, space giving just sounds like a more generous time of year. What are you doing? Space giving.
Space giving. All the introverts rejoice. You're giving them space. It's what they need after Thanksgiving. Like the bombardment of families, and having this space encroached on.
I feel like it's appropriate for the end of a grand final in Bake Off. So what are we doing here for the showstopper? Space giving. And like everyone comes rushing over at the end, and they're like, "I said space giving." So look, this is basically a celebration of space giving. Then we had just a lovely little moment where Zoya's like, something's not quite right here. Chi, can I get you to taste my cream for me? Trying to work out. Now, at one point I was thinking it might have been the gelatin in it, which is why Zoya asked you to test it. But it was beef. It wasn't a pork product. It was a beef.
Oh, okay, gelatin. Cool. Because I was like, but she was probably like going, oh, when I do my, it's quite funny. There'll be mornings when I don't know what fucking date it is. So I'll just put the milk in the milk frother and make my coffee. And then I'll like, this tastes weird. And I'm like, Chris, does this taste? This is a guy who mainlines black coffee. Yeah. So it would taste weird to him anyway. Yeah. I'll still ask.
I still check it. But yeah, I love that. And
then he still reminds me that he has no fucking idea.
Yeah. Well, she checked it. She's like, yeah, the gelatin's really, it's not bonded in. And again, look, gelatin's a bitch. And gelatin's always a bitch. Doesn't matter what series of Bake Off you watch, whenever they produce gelatin, and we saw gelatin twice in this grand final. Once in the signature, it worked there. Once in this part of the showstopper. And, again, this was the point where Zoya lost a little bit of time because she had to go back through, restrain the cream again.
But you know why? Because the gelatin had beef. It was beef gelatin. If it had no beef, it would have been fine.
Complained?
No. It would have been like, I'm beef free, I'm nice and calm. I'm open to be used. But this one had beef.
So all the bakers return for their happy moment where they all get together and
Thank you for going with me and giving me a little snort laugh.
No problems, you're welcome. So the bakers all return and they get put into their little groups, so they all have to say that one of the 3 will win, and they group them off. So a couple of them will say that I think Chi's the one, and a couple of them will go, I think Lauren's the one, and a couple will go, I think Zoya's the one. In reality, they're all going like us. There's no wrong answer here, whoever.
Yeah. It really is that bloody kind of grand final. We'd won at the beginning.
Yeah, and then like the last sort of moment, and there's not a lot of moments in this. It was just a really solid episode.
Yeah.
And because Anne turns around to Lauren at one point and goes, "Are you on schedule?" And as she's saying that, Lauren's pot boiled over.
Oh.
And Lauren's like, "Oh," and Anne's like, "I'll leave you alone." So
the best laid plans.
The judging. Lauren. Now, they said that she brought the garden to the garden party. Creative, vibrant, the cream in the pods held up absolutely beautifully. The flavours were amazing. The Korean pancake with the mulled wine in particular was just beautiful. The dough in the scones was worked to an absolute perfect level. The scones were not overworked. The CWA in Australia would be very pleased. Yeah. And the challah, which was the bread that she made, obviously had perfect texture. Bruno thought it was amazing. They had no notes.
Yeah.
Zoya. They said that the eyes were drawn immediately to the big cake in the middle, which was great. but Bruno wanted more of the arch that went over the top of it covered with things.
Yeah, what were they called? The
Jelly bees. Yeah, jelly bees. Yeah.
Mangosteen.
Mango,
Mangosteen, that's it,
Yes.
yeah. The purple balls.
Yes. The Szechuan was great.
Like Grimace.
The colour pop on the Cracklin was also really good.
Did you know Grimace was supposed to be a villain?
Yes.
Who makes a villain that's all cuddly and fun like that?
Well, they eventually marketed him anyway, so... Yeah. The shoe needed a few more minutes, but overwhelmingly the flavour was great. The cake was stunning and the contrast of the colour was beautiful. The tea was well flavoured and the whole thing was refreshing.
Well done.
Then she. So they said it was an absolutely perfect store window display. The pineapple cakes had a slight pocket inside where it could have been slightly under, but the colour and flavour was beautiful. And they said the chili kick was just beautifully warming and came through the right way. The moon cake had an excellent texture. The red bean Mont Blanc was a little pale on the bottom, but very light to the taste. And Bruno commented the red bean was beautiful on the tip. He's like, I've been sick and tired of eating these traditional Mont Blancs. You know, I'm over this traditional Mont Blanc, so thank you for red bean. But apparently it was absolutely beautiful. And the Swiss roll they loved, and the jackfruit in particular and the Swiss roll just added the volume up on that and just made it really fresh.
Well done.
So we cut back and Kyla's like, yeah, this is really hard. And again, we've said the whole way along, there's absolutely, no one was going to be a loser out of this. And we've said all the way along, you like to see, especially at a grand final, but in any week, you don't like it when someone feels like they lost it.
No, you know what this is? These 3 bakers are a triangle. You can squeeze them anywhere. They're all strong. They're not going to fall down into a pile of sticks.
They are the baking triangle.
Yeah, like last week, it was a trapazoid. Sorry, Kristie.
Well, her house literally fell down.
Yeah. But this time, we've got the triangle. The triangle of...
Bakers.
Bakers.
The baking triangle.
Baking triangle.
So, look, nobody in this episode screwed up. You didn't have anyone lose it. What you did have was one baker won it.
Yep.
And
it's the perfect way. This is my favourite way someone wins. It's not about who had a big fucking disaster. It was like, who was the best of the best.
Yeah. And again, Lauren wins, and absolutely 100% correct decision. Lauren, especially, she won the technical.
Yep.
She knocked the showstopper completely out of the park.
And the worst thing she did in her signature was make a choice to make slim shoe.
Yeah, and that was it. No, like, I want more on top. And that was literally the note.
Yeah, and, like, Bruno's just not a fan of Eminem, He did not want to know Slim Shooty.
Ooh.
Way to spoil a moment.
Ooh. Here we are with this beautiful moment, and yeah.
I whipped that out. You're welcome.
This has been one of the best series of Bake Off I think we've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I think the quality of baking has been outstanding.
Yep.
I don't think it mattered who won, to be honest with you. I think all 3 of them, and again, it feels like you're all winners thing, but legitimately, the 3 of them did such an amazing job in this grand final. And you can go all the way back to everyone. You can go all the way back through the weeks. Every single person in this series has contributed, everyone I've spoken to, and we're going to be doing a lot of podcasts coming up. We're going to be interviewing people from this series still. We're going to be talking to bakers from other series, and we're going to be talking about different series, and this series is going to come up again. And
we've got a lot of catch up to do.
There's a lot of catching up to do because just timing has not worked.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of stuff still coming up. But one of the things that I think has been consistent among everyone I've spoken to is that this series of Canadian has raised the bar significantly.
Yep.
Not just in the way that they bake, but just in the people that they are, and the way they've interacted with each other, and the way they support each other, and just...
the fashions.
And the fashions. Like, again, it's all fashion.
Like, Lauren, you knew she was a winner. Why? She matched to a bake.
Yeah, so I think, look, Lauren is a worthy winner. Chi and Zoya had amazing performances to get this far, and everyone was absolutely brilliant. I didn't envy Bruno and Kyla one bit, because that was just a really tough decision to have to make.
Yeah.
But they made it, and they made it quite well. So, that is a wrap-up of the grand final. Now, before we go... we have in a couple of days we will release. We spoke to Rosemary on the weekend. I was going to go, we spoke to a baker, but everyone's already guessing it's Rosemary. We spoke to Rosemary on the weekend. We'll be releasing that one midweek. We wanted to give the grand final episode
We're going to give you a whole lot of Rosie.
its own moment.
Sorry,
we'll
Rosemary.
we'll give you Rosemary's episode during the week, and then some point next week we're going to start with a few more interviews from a few more of these bakers. We have 2 Virgie Awards coming up.
Yes.
We have back-to-back. The Australian Awards are happening first, and we've got to dart over to Canada.
Yep.
So we've got to do the Canadian ones after that. So, obviously, scheduling at this time of year is crazy.
Yeah.
Getting all the bakers together for the Night of Nights is really tough.
And look, we would have had the Australian one out earlier, but there was a bit of an incident at the end that we had to kind of...
We got legal having to clear some things.
It was interesting times, but it's all worked out in the end.
It's worked out in the end, mostly.
I'm not harmed.
No, you're not harmed, and that's the most important thing. So the Australian Virgies are coming up soon as well. We're hoping to talk to a couple of those bakers. We're also planning a couple of little fun bits and pieces with a mixture of bakers from different series. Ooh. And I'm not just talking across Canadian, I'm talking blending a couple of series together for a bit of a chat.
So look forward to those South African bakers.
Yes, all of those South African bakers and the help who do all the work for them. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for your feedback. We really enjoy all the time that we get and all the feedback that we get. It's one of the reasons we do it, is all the positive feedback that we get from everybody. Thank you as always to Kristie for being Kristie, because that's really important in this whole thing.
Thank you for keeping me on track and the podcast going and doing all the technical stuff.
I fight as hard as I can. Sometimes it's a winning battle, sometimes it's a losing battle, but I fight as hard as I can.
I hear you're going to go and train with Anne.
I am definitely going to go train with Anne. Thank you to all the bakers. Also, before we go...
Yeah?
I did forget.
What?
We'll be back next week.
Will we?
Talking to the bakers from the holiday special. And we are doing, I'll tell you straight up, this is a group podcast.
Yeah.
We are having all 4.
Yeah.
On the show.
It's a holiday.
We're finally, 5.
It's our end of year party.
5. Because Mengling will obviously have to bring Nimbus.
Oh, gotcha.
Because Nimbus is brain. We know this.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So
Nimbus will be there.
So we will have... We will have all of those bakers. The fruit pirate will be making her, the fruit pirate princess will make her return.
I think that's why that she was too busy, doing that to worry about like the mango quality.
We do have to ask her about the berry problem. Anyway, we'll do that later.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will be back to talk to those bakers from the holiday special, plus all the bakers from this series, plus a bunch of other bakers. If they've baked and they've been involved in Bake Off, we're probably talking to them. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Oh, Lauren, congratulations. I'm not crying.